So if one driver on the grid right now encapsulates the term perseverance despite having very little to no success in his actual career, it has got to be Nico Hulkenberg. And whilst the ink is now dry on his new Sauber, then to become Audi contract, I was thinking this move over, and I have to say that this has got to be one of the most sensible driver moves we are going to see as we go into the 2025 season. And not only sensible, but wrapped in full-on German logic considering his age and his career so far. So let's get into this, but before we do, give that little subscribe button below a click as it really helps the channel. So a quick sit rep then. So Nico Hulkenberg signed a multi-year contract which will see him move to Sauber for 2025 and then on to 2026 when the team finally becomes Audi. And I say finally because it feels like this has taken forever. And on the surface this may appear like a slightly odd move considering how his current team Haas have completely sorted themselves out, they've scored some points, and they have a very tidy and quick car. Meanwhile his employers for next year's Sauber have done the total opposite. They've created a car with the aerodynamic qualities of a camel, and they've seemed to have forgotten how to do pit stops. So you might be asking, why the hell at this stage has he decided to move from Haas to Sauber? From a team that has potential to nab a few points to a team that you kind of sometimes forget is even there. Well, given Hulkenberg's F1 career so far, combined with his age, his priorities, and what he's looking for is somewhat different to what you might find with someone like Carlos Sainz, for example. Because I sense Hulkenberg has had a bit of a reality check and his feet are firmly on the ground. And that's very commendable because if he was holding out for that Red Bull or Mercedes seat that is potentially vacant, he's going to be waiting for quite a long time. And that is a shame because I think he really is a talent that no top team ever really gave a chance or tapped into. And yes, he's had some long stints with teams like Renault and Force India, but he never really got the call up because some faults were his and some faults were out of his control, but here we are. And so with that, I sense his priorities now are, how can I extend my time in F1 for as long as possible? What team isn't going to fold in the next couple of years? And who can give me a career post Formula One? And really, the only option here was Sauber/Audi. And it does break your heart to see this, but apparently Haas and Komatsu really tried and fought hard to keep Hulkenberg at the team. And apparently they were really willing to give him anything to keep him on. And yes, Haas gave him his comeback and breathed new life into his career, which short term I'd say is exactly what Hulk wanted, but now he wants things that Haas simply can't deliver for him. At this stage, he's not naive enough just to say, I want a fast car and I want to win world championships. He's thinking long term, and Audi can offer him a better future than Haas. Although the performance at Sauber right now is not there, and there's no guarantees that Audi is going to be a success overnight. However, Audi have fronted up, it's going to be a long-term project, and they've committed to him for apparently at least 2 years. And also a big factor of this move, I'd say, is to be part of Audi's other motorsport projects, which there are a wealth of. This is a factory team, and if you perform well and have the right mentality, I'd say once you're in, you're in. And unless we see a surprise signing for the 2025-26 season, Hulkenberg will be the only German driver on the grid. And if this is the case, Audi are going to want to push him hard domestically, especially if we do see a return of the German Grand Prix for 2026. Whereas Haas, unfortunately, they just can't compete with what Audi has to offer. Right now, Hulkenberg is reportedly one of the lowest paid drivers on the grid, and I'd say is probably still locked into the contract that brought him back into F1 in the first place. And to be honest, when he signed that contract that brought him back in from the cold, he kind of had the mindset of anything will do by this stage. And I'm sorry, Haas, but pizza parties and crazy hat days don't count as payment. And this is the problem because Haas have never been flush with cash, and therefore their driver lineup has always kind of suffered from this. It's either been a home for pay drivers or any port in a storm for drivers who can't find anywhere else, such as Roman Grosjean or Kevin Magnussen. But interestingly, Hulk has now broken this trend, and he's probably asking for just a few more $1 million and a commitment of 2 to 3 years, and Haas simply can't offer this because they don't have the money. And also, when you hear these reports of the team being sold off or whatever, they might not exist in another 2 or 3 years. And I'm not just picking this out of the blue, because anytime you see interviews with Gene Haas, there's always the topic of, are you selling the team? Or even Andretti gets mentioned or anything like that. So I guess his concerns are completely well-founded. And although Haas are flying right now and Komatsu is doing an absolutely amazing job, with Haas, there is just no guarantees with this team. This year, they've surprised everybody, but next year, they could finish dead last. We just don't know with these guys. And I'll be honest, although I'm happy that we're going to see Hulkenberg in F1 for at least another 2 years, I'm kind of gutted he is actually leaving Haas. I've actually really enjoyed that Hulkenberg and Haas combination where they sometimes just pull off the absolute seemingly impossible, getting into Q3 and delivering some really unexpected results. But the thing is, Hulk is savvy and wise enough at this stage to not be sold on this alone. He's been around the block now and he's had Formula One snatched away from him not once but twice now. If he didn't have the qualities that I think he does, his career should have ended at the end of 2019 when he was dropped by Renault. And yes, credit to Haas for giving him another go in 2023 after a few years as reserve driver, but F1 is cutthroat, and although team principals like to talk about loyalty, it's only when it suits them, not the driver. So Hulkenberg has to make a decision that suits him and him alone. And actually, looking back, Hulk has seen very little loyalty and commitment from teams in his career. So when one actually does come along and show this, a team which he has driven for previously and one which did try to sign him in 2024, I don't blame him for signing for Sauber. And you could say, given his performances, he really doesn't owe Haas anything by this stage. So when this opportunity to drive for Audi and Sauber does come along, he's just going to jump at it. Now, you could make the argument that in 2026, Audi F1 is basically just going to be a red Sauber. And until they bring in their very clever people and assemble the actual team they want for their Formula One project, we may not see the real Audi F1 team until 2027, 28, or even 2030. Jeez, it's scary talking about those kind of dates. But that is exactly why this team wants someone like Hulkenberg. They need someone who will put up with and potentially outdrive a bad car, which is a knack that Hulkenberg has kind of developed over the years. And I sense that they couldn't bring in a Leclerc, Verstappen or a Norris because at this stage they just wouldn't have the patience. If the performance isn't there, they'll throw their toys out of the pram and they probably would quit after maybe 1 or 2 seasons. Those guys are young, their priorities are give me a fast car, wins, championships, pole positions, all those sort of things. Anything aside from that, they're just straight up not interested in. And only once Audi have climbed up the rankings and established a decent minimal benchmark of performance can they go after those kind of blockbuster names. But then flipping that around, as each race goes by this season so far, I sense that Bottas and Guan Yu aren't going to be suitable for the team either. You know, Bottas, I think, is done, and he just wants to live out his hipster dream of mullets and burritos. And then if Guan Yu can't keep up with the guy whose heart isn't even in it, then there's no place for him there either. Which then leaves the question of who does Sauber/Audi put in the seat alongside Hulkenberg? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, if Hulk is going to go to Sauber/Audi to do the job that I think he's going to do, you know, lay the groundwork, get things up and running, implement some of his experience, it's interesting to compare this to what David Coulthard did at Red Bull back in 2005. Now, I'm not exactly saying that these scenarios are running absolutely parallel. You know, Coulthard was a proven race winner, and Red Bull did sign Adrian Newey the following year. But what I am saying is that for Hulkenberg, this is a good blueprint to follow for his career personally, especially considering that he'll be driving for a works team with deep pockets and how he can effectively associate himself with Audi forever if he does well. You know, even to this day, David Coulthard is still associated with Red Bull making appearances, demoing F1 cars, all that sort of thing. So longer term, post F1, but still under Audi, Hulkenberg could even try his hand at rallying or Dakar, or even World Endurance if Audi decides to make a return in that series. So the fact is, this move does open a lot of other doors, which Haas simply doesn't. Now, in terms of lengthening his career, getting that paycheck, embedding himself with the works teams, it ticks all those boxes, tick, tick, tick. However, this does not guarantee that this move or experience with Sauber/Audi will be a successful one. Why am I saying this? Well, let me draw your attention to Toyota's attempt as a Formula One team. And again, like Audi signing Hulkenberg, Toyota, in a similar fashion, signed drivers which were diamonds in the rough and, in some people's eyes, not given a fair shot in their first 2 seasons. Drivers such as Mika Salo, Olivier Panis, and Alan McNish. Fast forward to 2024, and Toyota are firmly in the F1 graveyard, and none of those drivers had any success during their time with Toyota F1. But I think this just reaffirms that Hulkenberg's motivations for Audi is not to win races and championships. Surely he knows that, at the very least, he's acting as a placeholder until the team actually does do well and see some success. And then if the success does follow, as I mentioned earlier, he has a job within Audi for life, a new car every 2 years, and potentially an oil painting of himself at the factory. So now you're probably thinking, okay, Paul, we get it. The move to Audi, you've said, is a sensible one. I just still wish that he stayed at Haas. Would that not have been the better choice? So in terms of just outright points and results, I would say yes, it is probably the better choice. There is every possibility that staying at Haas for another year or two might yield better statistics, shall we say. But as every famous athlete who is now broke knows, statistics don't pay the bills. And from the look at that F1 driver salary list, Haas are definitely taking more than they are giving Hulkenberg. Now, whilst Haas definitely this season has a better package compared to Sauber, what if that completely switches around in 2025? And also, what if Haas replaced K-Mag with Oliver Behrman for 2025, who in turn matched or even outperformed Hulkenberg? And I'm sure those are a series of questions that Hulkenberg doesn't want to know the answers to. And also quite rightly considering a long-term Audi contract was placed in front of him. And also, I'm not sure if this was because of Gunther Steiner's management, but every season at Haas felt like it could have been the last one. There was always a kind of feeling that the team could fold or could even just be sold off at the last minute. Now, I don't know if Komatsu is going to completely turn this around, but at this stage of Hulkenberg's career, I'm sure that that is simply just a stress that he just doesn't need. You know, let a young guy like Behrman or someone deal with a stress like that. But I guess the long and short of it is that for once in Hulkenberg's career at this stage, he has the opportunity for some stability, commitment, and also potentially the salary to go with it as well. You know, ease into retirement, get that house extension, and also that jacuzzi that his wife's been going on about. So at least another 2 years in F1, a new Audi on the driveway. Happy days for Hulkenberg. But do let me know what you think. Is the move away from Haas to Sauber a good idea or a bad idea? Give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers.